Hi, my name is Emily Conrad, and I am the author of The Faithless, The Untold Story of the Electoral College. And in this book, I interview 8 of the faithless electors of the 2016 presidential election. So these are people, both Democrats and Republicans, who decided that they would not vote for their party's chosen candidate in 2016. I'm originally from South Carolina, and doing this research and made me think, could there possibly be faithless electors in South Carolina? How does the Electoral College even work in this state? I got to researching and I found out a lot of information that I'm excited to share with you. First of all, let's get legal. So, I have right here the 2013 South Carolina Code of Laws, Title VII Elections, Chapter 19, Special Provisions Applicable to Federal Elections, and Section 80. So my question is, legally, could there be faithless electors in South Carolina? And the answer is yes. Legally, there could be faithless electors in South Carolina. I'll read just a little bit to you. Each candidate for presidential and vice presidential elector shall declare which candidate for president and vice president he will vote for if elected. Those elected shall vote for the president and vice president candidates for whom they declared. So basically, this is saying, there's a declaration, and I actually have a copy of the declaration. It's just saying I'm going to vote for this person for president and this person for vice president. And all of the electors have to sign it regardless of which party they're from. That is mandated by the Secretary of State of South Carolina. But then it gets really interesting, and it says, any elector who votes contrary to the provisions of this section shall be deemed guilty of violating the election laws of the state, and upon conviction shall be punished according to the law. The Attorney General shall institute criminal action for any violation of the provision of this section. So I'm no lawyer, but my reading was this, is that if there is a faithless elector, that faithless vote will stand because there are no provisions, no legal mechanisms to remove a faithless elector. But if somebody votes faithlessly, they're going to have criminal charges put up against them. I wasn't 100% sure my reading was correct, so I reached out to the Secretary of State for South Carolina, and the Secretary of State of South Carolina is in charge of everything related to the Electoral College in South Carolina, and the Deputy Counsel said that yes, my reading is likely accurate. So yes, we could have faithless electors. But she also mentioned that the likelihood of having faithless electors is actually mitigated a bit by something that is mentioned later in this law, which is basically that the executive committee of any state party can remove the elector for whatever reason. That is actually extremely unlikely to happen during the vote itself, but let's just say somebody says, hey, I'm not going to vote for my party's chosen candidate. If they say this like a week or 2 weeks before the Electoral College vote, likely the executive committee will swoop in and make sure that that person is removed and that a new elector is chosen. But honestly speaking, if you just take a look at the rosters of both the Republican and the Democratic electors for 2020, you see a lot of people who have state leadership positions within their party in them, and I really don't think that there's going to be many faithless electors within this group of people, regardless of what the laws say. You really do have these party faithful as electors by design. I asked the Secretary of State Deputy Counsel if there are any laws or election codes that say how electors must be chosen, and there really aren't any. Every party has the ability to choose electors at their own discretion. There's no state guidelines to how to choose electors in South Carolina. So what did I do with that information? I contacted the Democratic Party of South Carolina and the Republican Party of South Carolina to figure out how do they choose their electors. Unfortunately, the Democrats didn't contact me back, but the Republicans did, and so at least I can share that with you. In a statewide meeting for the Republican Party, people who belong to each congressional district meet together within that meeting, and then they present a list of names that they think would make good electors. And they present this list to the executive committee of the GOP in South Carolina. Then the executive committee handpicks from these lists. So there's an interesting mix of kind of more grassroots, picking them out, and then an executive committee saying yes or no. All of this has to be done 60 days before the general election. The Secretary of State stipulates that all of the electors' names must be given to the Secretary of State 60 days before. So all of this was done this year before September 4th. There are a lot of other little interesting parts about the Electoral College. The first is that in South Carolina, electors are not on the ballot. So even though technically the Electoral College is this, we don't vote for president in November, we vote for electors to vote for the president on our behalf. Electors' names are not on the ballot in South Carolina. Another interesting thing is that electors do get a daily allowance that includes estimated travel expenses and also food for being an elector because they have to travel to the state capitol the day of. So I think I got it all right. I'm not 100% sure, but if anybody knows anything that I said wrong, please let me know. I'll correct myself. If anybody was an elector in South Carolina and wants to share their story with me, I would absolutely love to talk with you and to hear about your experiences in the Electoral College or as an elector-elect. In the meantime, if anybody's interested in learning more, I do have my book. It's for sale on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and also on Bookshop. It's called The Faithless, The Untold Story of the Electoral College.